Now to the woman who could just be the world's first rock and roll life. In 1958, when she was just a teenager art school student in Liverpool, England, a girl named Cynthia met, fell in love with, and then married a boy named John. But this wasn't just any old John. This was John Lennon on his way to becoming a music legend. John Lennon would have turned 65 this week, and now Cynthia Lennon has written a new book simply called John, full of eye-opening new details about their marriage, their divorce, full of what you'd never heard about one of the most famous men of the 20th century. Cynthia Lennon, thank you.
Good morning.
And you still go by Lennon, even though you have remarried?
Yes, I do. I changed my name by deed poll many years ago, after a marriage that didn't go very well, and I had to go to work. So instead of going Cynthia Powell or Cynthia Twist or Mrs. Bassanini, I mean, it's very complicated.
Right,
I had to work, so I changed my name back to deed poll so that I could use it commercially. But now, of course, I'm Mrs. Charles.
Mrs. Charles.
Yes.
But Mrs. Charles, you've written a lovely, lovely book, and very fair. I mean, it was a hard time that you went through with John, and you explained that, but you also come to the other end of it. But it was fascinating when and I want to quote you here. You saw John at school, and you said, quote, "Yuck, not my type."
Absolutely.
Well, what was it about him that you were drawn to eventually?
Well, I don't know. It's probably the danger, the charisma of John. You couldn't resist being around him. You couldn't resist watching what he was up to. I mean, he was a total rebel, and everybody was amazed by him. He got away with murder because he was there to study, and he did very little studying. And I was the one that he sort of latched onto in this lettering class and nicked all my pens and paintbrushes and everything else. And that was how we came together to a certain extent. And our conversation, our first meeting, was testing our eyesight because we were both blind without our glasses.
Oh. And it escalated from there. You married in '62, and you did drawings of your wedding and no real pictures other than your drawing?
Not one camera. I mean, it was done so quickly because Brian, it was a special license, and Brian organized it, and within 1 week we were married. And the drawing, of course, was when I did the book Twist of Lennon in 1978, and I illustrated the whole of the book with cartoons, and this was one from the book Twist of Lennon.
That we see here. That's beautiful,
Oh,
Cynthia.
yes.
Now, many of us know John Lennon as a man of peace, of love, but in reading your book, the early years, he was a complex man, and he even used to claim was physical with you at one point.
On one occasion, yes, but that was the only time. That was because of his insecurity and jealousy, because he was a very jealous young man at the time and had a lot of pain inside. And he wanted to trust me. And he thought by seeing me dancing with a friend of his that I was being disloyal or I was messing around. So he smacked me, and
But that was the only time.
I finished. Yes, well, I finished with him, and then 3 months later we got back together again.
And you had a beautiful son, Julian, his firstborn. And you said partly why you wrote this book, because this is not the first time you've written a book about this, but you said this is for Julian because many people, as you said, just kind of try to airbrush you and your son out of the Lennon story, out of the Beatles story.
Yeah, I think I have read so many books and I've seen so many films, etc., that we don't really exist. We are like walk-on parts in John's life. But we did spend 10 years. At least I spent 10 years of my life with John.
And his relationship with his son? His relationship, how was it in the end with his son,
John,
Julian? Yes, John and Julian?
Well, near the end and before his tragic death, of course, they were getting together on the phone, they were connecting. John was playing music down, chords, and when he was doing Double Fantasy, of course, and he'd phone Julian and say, "What do you think of this, Julian?" And it was just coming back, and it was wonderful. And then, of course, his life was cut very short. So.
It's
a tragedy.
It's a tragedy cut short, a life and a story. But a beautiful book that you've written, Cynthia.
Thank you very much.
It was hard. I
Thank
appreciate you being here.